We've all done it. We've been in an interaction that feels stressful, overwhelming, or painful, and we've said something we didn't mean to say. It came out before we knew we were thinking it, and we can't take it back no matter what we wish. How much would you give to never do that again? Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Kira Wackett. Thanks for joining me for another video as we work to empower and equip you with the confidence and skills to write your own story so that you can live your life on purpose. Today we're talking about the idea of reacting versus responding, or instead, how we show up to and respond in difficult interactions. How we respond to and in various interactions is one of the most important sources of power that we have. Do we jump to defense when someone says something hurtful or feels wrong? Or do we make space for others to have their own thoughts and experience? Are we trying to find a way forward or simply be right? And is it more important to have the other party hear you or react a certain way, or can you merely let their reactions go? Now, believe it or not, the difference in these answers determines who holds your power, you or the other party. Or more specifically, you or your shame. And it all comes down to whether or not you're being reactive or responsive in a given situation. The difference, while subtle in many cases, is tied to your emotions' role in these interactions. So what do I mean by this? Emotions are powerful tools and sources of information that shouldn't be neglected or ignored. And emotions are meant to be consultants and informants, not the leaders of our interaction. Why not? Because emotions are not anchors. They ebb and flow and can vary based on the day, the person, the interaction, or even how much sleep or food that we've had. But emotions often act like sneaker waves and consume us before we have any awareness, especially shame. When this happens, it can make it hard for us to be assertive or speaking from a place that makes and honors the space of both you and the other person's. In turn, we can feel overwhelmed by our shame and assume a role of defensiveness. It becomes more about the other person and their response or reaction than about us. We might shut down, try and prove that we're right, or have an expectation of what we need from them or what they should say or do. Essentially, we use either passive-aggressive, or aggressive communication, making what we say, think, and feel about the other person and not ourselves. We're no longer rooted in our own values, thoughts, and feelings, but we're attached to the other parties. And as soon as we do that, we become reactive. To be reactive means we're responding to the feelings and shame triggers being activated in a given interaction. Someone says or does something that kicks up our negative self-talk, biases, or shame stories, and we go on a defensive by attacking, avoiding, or appeasing the other party, often without even thinking about it. It's kind of as if our body is trying to get us out of and away from this feeling or experience as quickly as possible, no matter where and how we land. We act first and process later. Examples of how this might look include someone saying something that goes against your beliefs and values and feeling a pull to either make them understand or that they need to apologize for what they said because you're right and they just need to see that. You might go into your review feeling confident about how something went and get feedback that others thought you could have done better on X or Y. Instantly, you find yourself in a state of self-deprecation, dismissing what you thought, coming in with phrases like, gosh, they're probably right. What do I know? Another way might be a cashier asks you if you want to give $1 to their charity of the month at the grocery store, and you say yes without thinking or asking more questions. You don't want to be seen as uncharitable or greedy or unkind, and this is the best way to ensure that in the moment. And finally, you might have an argument with your partner and find that in response to whatever they say, you attack back harder. It becomes a battle of character assassination and who is worse at X. The conversation may have started about something generally benign or minor and ended with you cataloging all of the ways that your partner has let you down or lacks in X, Y, and Z. In each of these examples, you can see that action precedes reflection. There's no mindful pause. There's no long-term focus. You just act from a feeling. That feeling has triggered a perceived threat to our worth, value, and connection, and we must act now. And in that, it isn't uncommon for people to feel bad or regret their actions, or their reactions, I suppose, at a later time. The important point to note, however, is that this is your body's attempt to try and protect you. I don't mean to say that how you react is then out of your control, and it's crucial to understand this is something that's been built over time in your body's defenses and isn't intended to hurt you or others, but is acting as a means to protect you. All of this connects to and is rooted in your shame, the underbelly of any reactive experience. We feel like our position or place is actively threatened, and to secure it, we have to either give the power to the other person, completely detach ourselves, or make them feel small. Do you notice a theme here? Exactly. All of these avenues put the other person at the focal point of the interaction. Now we've tethered ourselves in the outcome of the exchange and subsequently our feelings to what they say or do, rather than how we think and feel. So how do we stop doing this? Trust me, I am guilty of taking the bait way more times than I would have liked. Hanging my happiness or excitement on how someone else responds to my news or thoughts, putting pressure on myself to have to be right all the time to be worthy or capable, using incredibly hurtful words to put someone down when I felt wronged. And what do these situations do for me? Nothing, but keep me under the control of my shame. So the answer or the shift is then learning to become responsive. Or rather, learning to talk from a place where I can stand independent of the reactions of others. Rather than allowing my shame free reign over an interaction, I can allow my emotions, shame included, to show up, but not hand them the keys to the car. I can survey them and acknowledge their presence, but I can also invite my thoughts and logic to the interaction as well. I can lean into the space and belief that the other party and I have values and that I do not need them to react in a given way for me to be validated or establish my worth or to reinforce that value. If I tell someone they hurt me or that I feel uncomfortable, it doesn't go away just because the other person might dismiss it or not agree. If I tell someone something I need and they don't see that as valid, my need is still viable and has a right to take up space. They don't get to erase that. And trying to force them to respond the way I want is also not going to serve me. Instead, if I'm genuinely responsive and assertive, I can articulate my thoughts, needs, wants, and ideas, and the interaction success lies in simply that. I can hold space to acknowledge the other person's feelings without dismissing my own. They can feel what they feel, and those feelings have a right to be there, but not at the expense of my own. Nor do my feelings need to trump theirs to be valid. This might mean that resolution isn't found in an interaction in the more traditional sense. And trust me, that sucks. Someone might never give me what I need, but the reality is we often assume we need much more than we do from others, when what we truly need is to disconnect from their response, good or bad. If I like a painting I made or a talk I gave, that's worthy of celebration even if no one else wants or appreciates it. Sure, I can take in the information from other people if it's helpful to my growth in the future, but that doesn't negate my own experience or the way that I perceive something in my timeline. So now the question is, how can you bring this to your life? How can you make the shift from reacting to responding? The most meaningful step to do is to work on your shame. Learn about it, uncover the role it plays in your life, and consider what steps need to be taken to dismantle it from your daily life and interactions. Where do you react? Why? With who? When X happens or when Y says Z, what threat gets activated? What fears exist? And what do you need to relinquish their hold on you? To help you dive deeper on this topic and some of the other facets of our work in this section, I'll be sure to include several different resources, including a video that I did on shame in the video notes or the show notes below. Second, we must build a relationship with our body, one where we actually listen. Reacting is a full body experience, and there are many subtle cues our body gives us when it starts to feel shame before we reach that true reaction point. So whether it's yoga, progressive muscle relaxation, meditation, or body scanning, spending time engaging with your body and learning to recognize how it shows you what it needs and feels. Another great way to go about this is to revisit situations or experiences that have caused stress or triggered your shame. Walk through the details of the incident and notice what you feel then and now in your body. So for example, one of the first signs of my shame is that I get this ache in the middle of my back. My lips actually start to feel cold and I can almost see my visual field tunnel in. If and when these cues present themselves, I can recognize that shame is at the table and respond accordingly. And finally, as we work to address our shame and connect with our bodies, we'll shift from feeling reactive to prepared for shame-triggering situations. Shame is never something I can get rid of, but shame resiliency is about learning when and how it will show up and developing a different response pattern. Having phrases that I can use in moments shame comes up and knowing that they can be incredibly helpful to alleviate stress or kind of detach from that reactive pull or that drive to find the right words can make this feel a little bit more accessible. So try these simple shifts and pivots in your daily life to help you transition from a state of being reactive to one of responsiveness. You could say something like, I can appreciate that we have different opinions. Or, I'm sorry to hear that you had a different experience of me or our interaction. I know we all have different tastes and interests. I can appreciate that this had a different effect on you, and while that wasn't my intention, I would be happy to talk through this with you to find a resolution. I feel sad that your response is X. I would have liked to have heard Y, and I understand that this may not happen. And as we bring all this to a close, I want to remind you to be kind to yourself in this process. Remember, shame has been built on years of negative self-talk and beliefs. It'll take more than a few videos to dismantle it. So show up, put the work in, and give yourself grace and space in this process. Meaningful and sustainable change results from an accumulation of 1% or micro changes. So as you think about this, just ask yourself, what's your next 1% change? How can you begin to apply this to your daily life? And what's the why that will empower you to get there? Now, as you all know, writing things down and sharing them out loud is one of the best ways to increase our buy-in and reinforce the work that we're doing. So leave a comment below with your next steps, your takeaways, and of course, any questions or ideas that you have for me so that I can best continue to support you in your journey. Be sure to take a look at the video notes to get links to the video on shame and some of the other topics I mentioned, as well as a few other resources that I think are incredibly helpful in this process of learning and growing. And if you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe so that you can save yourself the time and energy of having to check back, and you'll just get an alert whenever there's new awesomeness to check out on my channel. And if you want to stay in the know on all things Adversity Rising, be sure to click the link in the show notes to sign up for my email list so that you can get exclusive content that I don't share anywhere else. Thank you so much for being here with me today. This transition and change to learning how we can really move into that responsive place takes time and community and support to really allow us to lean into that kind of tension and discomfort that comes from making this shift. I'm excited to be here with you now and in the future as you continue to take these steps. Just remember, along this whole process, you are the author of your story. So let's work on getting that pen back. See you next time.